Mr. Brady, thanks for coming in to do this little talk with me. Just want to kind of introduce kind of how we got started. So I met you a little less than a week ago. I think you and I, we met in my office to talk about a property, and I feel like we kind of fleshed that out. But just listening to your story of how you started the company, and your company's called Rooted Land Management. Man, I was kind of enamored about kind of how you got started and what you get to do. It's, I guess I can relate it back to my youth. Growing up, get to play in dirt, go out and make trails in the woods, and just have a good time. And I know that the work that you do is just not all just fun and games all the time, but it's got to be. I mean, I think people see when you start talking about it, that is a passion. You've got probably your dream job. But I was really enamored by your story. I said, dude, we gotta do this podcast, and I want people to be able to hear or experience a little bit of what I experienced in my office as you were talking about your company. So thank you for coming. And so owner of Rooted Land Management. So tell us how you got started. Let's take us. Actually, I want you to start with. Should we start with college or go back further than that? Let's go a little further than that. So talk to me about where you were born, where you were raised, and a little bit about your history.
Okay. Yeah, I appreciate you asking me to come on here. It was so I was born in Bastrop, Louisiana. My dad's job took us around. I lived there until I was 8 or 9, and Dad's job actually took us to Raleigh, North Carolina. And then my mom and Dad got pregnant with my little brother, and they needed to get back closer. So closest thing they could find was Huntsville, Alabama. And after living in Raleigh for about a year and a half, we moved to Huntsville. And so about from 10 or 11 to the time I graduated high school, I was in Huntsville, Alabama. Sports and hunting was the only thing that I really cared about. It was baseball, football, and chasing big deer, and that's what we did. I think I gained a lot of love for the outdoors and all the planning and everything at a young age, just because my dad always took me to our family farm in Mississippi. So if he went, I went, and I still have memories on that farm of sitting out with a BB gun while they were putting in culverts and everything like that, and I was shooting BBs into the culvert, freaking my dad out. But
y'all still have that farm?
We still have that farm. That is my heaven on earth. That is I have a 2-year-old son. He comes with me just about every time I come now, so we get to relive all those memories, and so that's a lot of fun. But I think that's where it all kind of started, just back when I was 4, 5, 6 years old, just traveling around and going to work with my dad. And but my other passion was sports, and that kind of, I grabbed onto football, and always said I was never going to end back up in Monroe, Louisiana. And due to a couple deals, ULM gave me the opportunity to play football again. And
well, so let's talk about your high school. Where did you end up going to high school at?
I went to high school at Huntsville High School in Alabama, and it was.
And you played football?
I played football and baseball. It was about the size of West Monroe, maybe a little bit bigger.
What position in football did you play?
I played guard and center mostly, and I long snapped, and then wherever else I could get on the field. I was kind of a big guy, so there wasn't a lot of options.
Right. When you so going through high school, at what point did you believe that you could have an opportunity to play college ball?
I think I've always kind of believed that I had an opportunity. I didn't know why. That was just a goal of mine. I wanted to go play. I didn't care how I got there. I didn't care if it was Division I or Division III. I just wanted to, that was a goal that I think my parents say I was 7 or 8. And I told them, I was like, I'm going to play college baseball or college football, whichever one. And
so how'd you get connected with ULM?
So I call him my second grandfather. It's definitely God working in things, but we actually came in the summer before my senior year, and we were just coming in and visit my grandparents. They still live in Bastrop, and we came in and we left and found out Mr. Neal passed away. So we packed back up right after we got back home, and my dad was trying to get my mind off of things. Well, I had gone to like 22 camps that summer, and my dad was like, "Hey, there is a camp. Maybe it'll get your mind off of things." Me and Mr. Neal were real close. And I was like, "Dad, I'm not going to another camp. I'm tired. We're going to just let chips fall however they fall." And he said, "Okay." But he packed my bag, my camp bag. And he ended up talking me into it. And I went to a camp I think it was like the end of July at ULM. And I had probably the best camp that I've had all summer.
So was this where you had just graduated, or you were
was going into my senior year?
Going into your senior year, you go to this ULM camp, and sounds like you had a really good time.
I had a really good time. I loved it. I don't know, there was just a feel. It was that feeling back at home. I'd had some ups and downs in recruiting with coaching changes and scholarships being pulled, and I was just down. I was just trying to make something happen, and funny thing is, I had a good camp as an offensive lineman, but a long snapping is what caught their eye because we did that before anything. So, but I felt like at home and fell in love with it and continued to talk to them through my senior year, and I was like, we're going back home. That's really what it was.
So did you play your whole time when you were at ULM?
I played for 4 years.
Okay.
So I played from 14 to 18. I was able to I became the sixth man my redshirt sophomore year. So
okay.
I just I knew how to play tackle, but they were not too dumb to put me out at tackle. I was not tall enough, big enough, long enough, but center and guard is really where I hung out. So I loved it. I loved playing center. I was a catcher in baseball. It was just, it
felt natural to you.
And it was controlling. I got to control every pitch of the game in baseball. I got to touch the ball. And every down that we were on offense, I touched the ball. It all began with me, and it all ended with me. I loved it.
So during your time at ULM, you're not going to ULM just to play sports. You got to get an education while you're there. So I know there's a lot of our youth, and I've got a daughter that's at ULM right now, and I think she struggled a little bit trying to figure out what do I go in. I just want to make sure I make the right decision. How was that process for you trying to figure out? Did you already have it mapped out for you, or was there a process you had to go through saying, what do I need to do here as far as education?
I kind of made up my mind. So right after I committed to ULM, again, we lived here. My mom's from here, so we have a lot of family friends that are pretty much family. And there was a man, Mr. Jay Gillikin. He was like, "Hey, you should think about the construction management program." I said, "Well, I like construction, so we'll look into it." And he said, "You can come work for me in the summers. You come work for us when you graduate." Well, that turned into a whole different story, but that's kind of started looking into it. I said, "Man, I think I'm really interested in this." So I went in with the mindset of I'm going to go. My original goal was to go graduate in 3 years, do whatever I can to graduate in 3 years in construction management, get my master's in business, and then if it was possible, go get my engineering degree. I kind of always talked about wanting to own my own construction company one day, and I knew that if I had all those, it would set me on a path.
Right.
That is not what I did. I graduated in 4, which is still great. I graduated in 4. I stayed in construction management the whole time. I never had to repeat a class, so I was pretty stoked about that.
Well, something that I've learned recently, we have an agent in our office that her son's in that same program right now, and I don't know what level he's. I don't know if he's a senior now or about to be a senior, but the amount of internship offers that rolled in, I'm like, man, this is like, we're not talking about like small potato stuff. We're like big firms are actually really trying to recruit the youth out of ULM, and come to find out, which, it's a hidden gem here, that it's a very good program that we have that's very sought after by employers. So I had no idea until this year that was a hidden gem that we have.
Oh, yeah. The construction management program is, I believe, they're the number two or number 3 construction management program in the country. I remember when it was internship interview week or job interview week, really there was really a couple weeks, but we had people in there. There were sign up sheets, and we learned about the companies coming in, and we interviewed. I mean, I probably did my sophomore, junior year. I can't remember. I bet I did 22 internship interviews.
Wow.
With 22 different companies from small, just concrete contractors. That's all they did was concrete, to all the way up to the big time worldwide construction companies.
You hate to see people get, educate them here and then they, go off and leave. Like to, see that growth happen here. But it's still awesome to know that we have an institution here that is preparing our youth at a level that people across the world notice it and want to have that. So I guess that's my big thing that I've learned here for 2024 is that we got a kick butt construction program at ULM.
Awesome. It is awesome. And I think it's really hard. I was telling you last week, we were, I was fortunate enough to move off. I had lived in Raleigh. I had lived in Huntsville. I have friends now that I graduate with that live in Raleigh, that live in Huntsville, Nashville, Houston, Dallas. And heck, I think we've had 5 or 6 of them come back home. They've come back here. Well, when we were all interviewing and everything, I had no desire to leave. I knew that if I had to leave to get a job, I would.
Right.
But I had no desire. I loved it here. It went from, about a 5-year span, it went from I'm never coming back to Monroe, Louisiana, to where I don't want to leave.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a big push from the world that what's on paper matters more. Yeah. And that dollar amount, you can grab a 21 to 24-year-old and show them a big number on paper. But,
sure.
I was fortunate enough. I mean, my wife and I, we got married, and I graduated in May of 2018. We got married in December of 18, and we bought a house in March of 2019. And that would have not been possible if I wouldn't have, stayed here. And there's a lot of companies out there that people just don't even know about.
Yeah. No,
and I just started searching for them and sending just blind emails because I wanted to stay.
So you graduate. Where's your first job after graduation?
My first job was at Industrial Roofing and Construction.
Okay.
Actually, I take that back. I spent 6 months at a company called IntegraSite. We did site acquisition work for cell towers.
Mm-hmm.
So I traveled all over the southeast up into Virginia, southern Indiana, and I would go and work land sites to potentially build a cell tower on people's property.
Right.
I did all the prep work, and for that, I just didn't. The travel was killing me. I was trying to plan a wedding in the middle of being gone for 2, 3, 4 weeks at a time, and so I started sending some blind emails, and I ended up taking a job the week before I got married with Industrial Roofing and Construction. Okay. And I worked there for a couple years, loved it. It was I loved the people that I worked for. I mean, if it wasn't for Mr. Larry Corson and the things that he taught me in those 2 years, I don't know that I would. He set the foundation for me to be able to run my own business.
Right. So when you left them, where'd you go to next?
I went to Vista Construction as a project manager. I kind of got out of the industrial world and got in the commercial world, and did some concrete. And I kind of the industrial world has a weird pull on people. I'll say that. You hate it while you're in it, but when you're not in it, you miss it. And I missed it.
You think it's because does it just have more activity, more opportunity for things to change?
Absolutely. I think there's so much work out there. You're really never doing anything the same way twice. It's very fast paced. It's
problem solving.
Yes. And that is, I think that's the industrial world I related to the industrial world more because of football, because of always having to.
Got to be structured, but you got to be on go.
You got to be ready to go at all times.
But I'd also assume that in that industrial world too, that there's a lot of different skilled trades that you have to have on the job. So then you've got a lot of different styles of people that have to be managed.
Absolutely.
And come with each person is not built the same, which is going to have you can't talk to this person the way you talk to this person, having to figure out all those personalities. Probably a challenge in itself.
That was probably the biggest challenge. And I'll tell you what other thing was the biggest challenge is I was a 23-year-old kid being put in a position that I probably was not ready for, but I just talked my way into it.
Mm-hmm.
My dad always was kind of you talk and you dress for the part that you want to be, and eventually, and I did that, and I had to learn fast, and I had to earn respect very fast.
Yeah, because it's hard, especially I would think in a field like that you've got doers. You got people who have been there, they've done that, and they've been doing that for quite
30 years.
And then you got a 20-something-year-old coming in and asking me to do something different than the way I'm used to doing it. Who is he to tell me what to do? So I can understand that there would be some friction in that you had a learning curve that you had to respond to very quickly.
I'll tell you the one thing that I did, and it probably hurt me a little bit, but I think it helped me at the same time, is I was very big on trying my best to bring new technology to a world that is, once you do it the same way, you don't change it because it's never been broke. Yeah. So there's no reason to change it. And
change is tough for a lot of people.
And I just did it for them. Like I would go and I would do what I was good at. I took what I was good at. I was like, you go do what you're good at. That's why you're getting paid. I'm getting paid to do this. So why don't we just mix together, and I'll do this stuff for you, and you just make sure this job gets done. And it added a little bit more to my plate, but I think it also gave me a little bit of I was not scared to get in there with them, but I was also, if I was asking them to do something, I was willing to do it with them.
Yeah, it's I learned much later than probably what I should when it comes to leadership, that a great leader is not supposed to do the work for their people, but a great leader should be capable to work alongside of the people when the people need it. A great leader should be able to inspire people to want to do it. And a great leader should be looking over the people to make sure they're being taken care of as well. So I can appreciate that when it came to change, as you're describing, that you were able to lead by example. It's that whole servant leadership standpoint that I haven't seen a better not example, but a better leadership style than servant leadership. We get out of the commercial industrial world. What takes us to where you're at now? So
kind of have to back up a little bit.
Okay.
So when I was working for industrial roofing, I was, I still don't remember the plant. I don't remember much of those couple of days just because my brain was spinning. But me and one of our superintendents were driving to a mill in Alabama, and I just got tired of listening to music. So I found a podcast and started listening, and I said, man, this sounds interesting. It was a company called Habitat Solutions out of Oklahoma, and I listened to this I think it was like an hour and 20 minutes long, and I listened to it, and I said, man, I could do this, and this is what I love to do anyway. I'm always trying to plan my trips of doing this and doing that, and I love doing it for other people.
So what was this company?
So Habitat Solutions was they focus on duck habitat. They build duck clubs, and they build duck habitat, and they go in and they'll go in and take a raw piece of property and they'll farm for ducks. Like Shane Olson is the owner of Habitat Solutions, and his Instagram name is the Duck Farmer. And I didn't want anything to do necessarily with the ag side. They do a lot of ag consulting. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I know a ton about it. I know a couple guys I can call, but that I was more interested in that habitat development.
Okay.
So I listened to their podcast. I got to the hotel, turned their podcast back on, opened up a notebook, and just started taking notes. And then I looked on their website, and they had everything they did on their website. So I just started taking more notes. And I worked at that mill for a couple of days, and I called my wife on the way home, and I was like, I don't know when, but I said, I really want to try to figure out how to do this. And I think you can even go back farther of when we were talking about college with my parent, back when I was in high school, my parents asked me, well, what do you want to do? And I said, I really like to go into ag. And they said, well, what are you going to do with ag? We're not farmers. And I didn't have the people in my life to really kind of tell me all the different options out there that there are in ag.
Right.
And that's when I went construction. And I always wanted to be in the outdoor wildlife. I did not care so much. Not, that sounds bad, but I wasn't too interested in doing wildlife biology. It was more just, I was interested, but not as interested as the ag and all of that. So fast forward, listen to that podcast, called my wife. I was like, I don't know how we're going to do this, but I think we're going to do this one day. And my wife, she'll tell you, it's ever since she's met me, I've always said I'm going to own my own business, whether it was a construction company, whatever it might be. We're going to own our own business one day. And she just kind of let me talk, and then I slowly worked on this for the next three and a half years. Just
so let's talk about slowly work on it, because one of the things I would like the listeners to capture out of this, because I did when we first talked, is you didn't create something overnight. Your past experiences helped you build this thing, but there was a process that you went through. I think it's really cool for a lot of people that are able to create something from nothing overnight, take it, run it, grow it, win
Absolutely.
big, make it happen. But that's not every situation.
right.
A lot of situations come, if anything worth having is going to have to take some work. And if it's going to last, it's going to take some work. So you started on this 3-year, we started with a podcast that sparked something inside of you that put you on a path like this is doable. And over the next 3 years. So walk us through a little bit of kind of what that prep was like to lead you down the path of the next 3 years.
So a lot of it was just kind of trying to build my plan, I guess, my business model of what it could be. It was a lot of studying. It was a lot of diving into some more podcasts. I listened to a lot of the Mossy Oak Gamekeepers,
because you just don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, and that's what. And my deal is if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room.
Yeah, I agree with that. I love that statement, by the way, because you're never going to grow. If the day you stop learning, the day you stop listening to people is the day you stop growing.
Absolutely. And that's where, and there's a lot of people that have maybe not done it in the way that I'm doing it for a long time, but they have done pieces of this for a very, very long time. From anywhere from the prescribed burning, what's the benefits of it, to soil samples, to why plant this when. Like there's a lot more aspects than, just we're going to do a little bit of land management. I wanted to go more in depth into that.
We got more technology today than we've ever had to be able to give us more resources so that we can make better decisions. So you're in that constant state of trying to figure things out. Now, tell me just a brief overview. You say you have a family farm. What is a family farm?
So our family farm was so my great grandfather bought this place. I think it was originally right at 300 acres. He bought it in the late 40s.
Okay.
And my grandfather, that's where he grew up, and that's where my grandparents met. And so he had cattle and other things there, other animals. I don't know what all he had. And then back in, I think it was 2000-ish, we turned it into a tree farm.
Okay.
So my grandfather planted pine trees in every pasture possible.
Right.
And now it's
Because back then that was the thing.
that was the thing to do.
Yeah.
And so he planted pine trees all over the place. But my dad and I, we've learned the pine trees, and I kind of took it. I'm the oldest grandkid. I'm the oldest kid. I kind of took it as, okay, these trees don't just turn around very fast, you know. So by the time it's time to do a lot of the work with some of these trees, I'm going to be the one running. I better learn some of this stuff.
Yeah. So as you're going through this process, this 3-year process, were you able to utilize the farm in some aspect as a guinea pig to start proof of concept?
Absolutely. I still use it. That is where the farm went from a hunting property that my dad and I did. We planted food plots. We did the trails. We did everything, to now it's almost like my mini testing grounds. I test seed out there. I test. There's a company that I use called Deer Grow. We partner with Deer Grow. It's a liquid fertilizer.
I'm going to try that out. We're going to do a little bit of spring stuff.
That is one of the best products out there. I absolutely love it, and it is a ag-based product.
Well, before we get too in depth in that, I want to just circle back to your proving grounds. What was that one thing that you can come back and think of that the knowledge that you gained through your research, you were able to implement and say, "Holy cow, this stuff works"?
I had a guy call me. I had a guy down the street call me from our family farm that wanted some work done. And that was about 1.5 years ago, 2 years ago. And he said, "Hey, I want you to do whatever you're doing on your place on mine."
Why did he want you to do?
I have no clue. He just didn't have the time. I don't know if it was that he didn't have the time, and I didn't even charge him.
But at this point,
I just did it because I wanted to.
But at this point, you were seeing major progress on what y'all were doing,
and that's what. And I think that he was a family friend of ours, so he would come over there, and I guess that was about the time that my grandparents put us a place to stay over there, and so he was coming over, and he was just seeing some of the stuff that I was doing, and my dad was helping me with it, and we did a little bit for him, and that's when it kind of clicked in my head and said, okay, if it's done correctly, people are going to want you to do it for them. It's not that they don't know how to do it. It's not that they don't want to do it. Some people just don't have the time to do it.
Right.
Some people don't know how to do it, and they don't have the time.
Right.
Or they don't know how to do it, but they have the time, so they want you to help them so they can learn. And that's kind of the 3 different types of people that I see.
So you got proof of concept. You took about a 3-year period looking at it. And then did you have a time to where you said, I'm going to start this company, but I still need to work some? Or did you just go all in with a company?
So in 2022, I was working for an industrial company. I was working with Matt Dickerson. And there were some changes happening in that company, and I ended up leaving. And I looked at my wife and I said, it was November 15th. I was freaking out. I have a 10-month-old at home. I don't know what's going on.
Had been married that long?
Oh, yeah. Well, at this point, we had been married. Oh, crap. I messed this up. It's been 4 years. We were about to be at our 4-year anniversary.
Okay. But still early in marriage.
Yeah, we're still early. And I couldn't sleep. I didn't sleep for weeks. I didn't know how I was going to provide, and that was a big deal for me.
Sure.
And I remember plain as day, God said, "You're going to be okay. I got this covered. You just got to trust me." Well, I went to sleep. And so that was November 15th. And I really thought he was calling me to this land management. I just didn't know how. I didn't have any money. I didn't have what I thought was enough to start a business. And so I just started praying. I said, well, you can't have a business without a name. So I just started praying for a name. And I guess it was right around 1st of January. I was praying for a name, and my prayer was, God, just give me a name that'd be a conversation starter. That was my big conversation starter for you. I was sleeping, and in the middle of the night, it was like, I think it was around 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. I woke up from a dead sleep, and from a drink, I saw my truck driving down the interstate, and it had a logo on it, and it said Rooted. And I was like, man, that's freaking awesome. So I woke up freaking out, trying to find a piece of paper and a pen. I never have a piece of paper or pen by my bed. I sit up, and there's a piece of paper, and I sketched it out. I still have the sketch. And I saw Rooted. I was like, okay, that's it. And then my nerves kicked in. So in the midst of this month and a half, I ended up taking a job with Grindstone Construction. Great company. Love Ben and Patrick to death. And I was scared about this money deal, right? So in this time, I had actually approached Ben Cunningham about partnering with me. And I took the name to him, and I think that there were some differences in the name that we just didn't agree on. Well, I took that, Rooted, and shoved it to the side and said, I don't need a name to start up a conversation about Christ. And things were going easy. Like we're good to go. And we created a company and started kind of pushing a little bit, and the men's retreat happened.
Well, let me pause before we get to that. So there's going to be people that are not watching this podcast are going to be listening to it, and I want them just to get a visual picture. You're wearing a hat and a shirt with your logo on it, and this mental picture I want people to have. Rooted has the T as a cross with roots coming out of the bottom of it. And when you talk about you don't need a logo to start a conversation, that logo for your company is a badge that you wear that says a lot about, it says more about you as an individual, what you believe or stand in, than it does that, hey, this is what I do for a living at this point. So I just kind of wanted to paint that picture of, the T being used as a very prominent cross with roots coming out the bottom of it. So, and before we get into that part on the ministry, I want to back up just a little bit, and I want to talk about how you, I want to talk about your faith, because I think that's important for people to understand that we all have different stories, and some stories have more twists and turns than other stories. But how did you get rooted in your faith before this point? Because you're demonstrating. I mean, you're walking within Scripture by letting God lead you through this and trying to be obedient to the word that you're following. But that kind of stuff doesn't happen in one day. Right. So there was a path there. So won't you take me back to kind of your upbringing and when you got to know the Lord?
So it all started back when I lived in Bastrop at First Baptist Church of Bastrop. That's where my grandparents still go. I was baptized in that church at 5. Now, I'm not going to sit here after everything I've learned, and I know that at 5 years old, I'm going to say that I probably gave everything I knew about Jesus and everything I knew about myself, and I gave it to him. Like, that's just kind of
sure.
But church and my faith has really been a big part of my life. Now, I've had a lot of veers off the road. But I mean, we were in church every Sunday, every Wednesday, all the way up until even when I was in high school. I mean, the youth group was very, very important to me. I didn't necessarily know in high school. I knew the Lord, but I kind of used him as my genie in a bottle, I guess, because, I want to go play college football. It's like, God, man, please just let me play good. If we do this, we're going, I promise you, if you let this happen, I'm going to give you all the glory, but I need you to make this happen first kind of deal. But it was always there. And then I got to high school, always in youth group. I had a mentor named Wayne Craft. Very influential person in my life. We are completely different, but we're completely the same. I could call Wayne right now. I have not seen him in probably 10 years, but I could call Wayne right now. He was, I think, around my age I am now when I was in high school. So, I mean, it's just, but got to college. And so the funny thing about coming to ULM is I met my wife. I got to ULM on like July 29th of 2014. I started dating my now wife September 15th of 2014. She was a student trainer for the football team. And I noticed her, but I was there. I was focused. I was ready to play football. But after that fall camp got through is when we met, we talked, and we started dating. And she grew up in church, and you don't miss. Like, this is no, like, I don't care. Like, the only time she ever let me miss is when we travel and we get home like 3 o'clock in the morning. She's like, go sleep. And she would come to my dorm. She'd pick me up and say, we're going to church. And we went with her parents. And I think there was a time where I was fighting the trying to make friends. Even though I'm back home, I'm still in a new town with new guys. We're just, playing football. Football can be a very, not just rough physically, mentally, spiritually, like it just.
Anytime you get that much testosterone amongst
150
young
dudes,
men,
yeah,
and it's we're all susceptible to temptation and to be able to stray. But it sounds to me like you were rooted in your faith. And I think as believers, we discount, because we were raised. My story is very similar to yours. I got saved at a very early age. And, there was a time where I strayed from doing what I was called to do. But I think as believers who were raised in the church, we do discount that, I was, got saved early. I don't necessarily have this magnificent story.
Right.
But it's not about where you start. It's about where you finish, and then where you take that torch and you bring that torch forward, and you be the light to others. So, and for many young men's story, I hear it all the time of how, and we see it through the Bible, countless, that it took that woman that was rooted in her faith, that sometimes can take us by the shirt collar and shake us a little bit, or
and she also
help steer us down the path.
She also, there was a few personal things that happened to me during that first month and a half of college that was really rough. And I mean, I was mad. Like, I was not, me and God were not on good terms. I was really mad at him. But what she showed me the love and grace that I was forgetting about.
Yeah.
And she was, look, you're going to lead. Like, I'm looking for a man that's going to be the spiritual leader of our house. Now, I kind of like what I said earlier. I was able to get in a couple positions out of college that I could talk my way into and then just figure it out. I was able to do the same thing. I knew what I was supposed to be doing. Right. That doesn't mean I was always doing it.
Yeah.
And then, when COVID hit, that's when my faith, I think, got shook a little bit. And I think I took it from more of the essential worker thing really bothered me. Because a lot of people, you hear essential worker, you're like, man, I'm important. I took it as, I'm a whole lot less important than them people that get to stay at home. Why do their lives matter so much that they get to stay at home and be protected by this virus when I have to go out every day and work?
Yeah.
And my wife had to too, because she worked for a construction company. And I was bitter. I was mad. It was not good. And I had a good friend of mine that I grew up with in Bastrop. We were in construction management together. We played golf together and all that. And he called me one day and said, hey, I'm starting a Bible study. want you to come. That was at 9:30 on a Thursday night. The Bible study started at 5 o'clock the next morning. And I went and fell in love with it and ended up finding a group of guys. And I went on a men's retreat with North Monroe in the fall of 2021. And that's when my eyes were opened.
Yeah.
And I realized that I was so worried about what the world thought of me, how much money I was making. It was never, and the problem was I had been married for 3 years.
Yeah.
Catherine was never popped. I loved her to death and I would do anything for her, but it was always, how am I providing? How am I doing that? And it opened my eyes. And I still have some bad times, but I still have some times where I revert back, but now she knows that I'm aware. So she lets me know, but it's been a growth process.
But how important is it to have those men in your life from an accountability standpoint?
Absolutely.
For as men, it's just as important for us to be in the Word as it is important to be that Paul to other men.
Absolutely.
And to be that Timothy to a Paul, so that we recognize when we need help, we have people around us that can give us help.
Absolutely.
Just because you've accepted Christ doesn't mean that the attacks stop. In fact, the attacks get greater at that point, and you need to equip yourself in the best possible way. So talk to me about what that first men retreat did for you. And I know that there's a lot of people that listen to this that are not going to be able to grasp what you're about to say. And, the part of the process through the retreat is that, you don't talk about, because we don't want to mess up someone's experience.
Absolutely.
Because the experience is part of it.
Right.
But tell me what that retreat did for you.
So this is where, if you do the math, in August of 2020 is when I went to that Bible study. I went back up. In April of 2020 is when I went to Alabama and heard that podcast. So I just want to throw that out there. I'll fill that back in. So I spent a year going to this Bible study, went to the men's retreat. The men's retreat opened my eyes to where, for the first time, I saw grown men being vulnerable, and vulnerable is taken so many different ways. Vulnerable and just being honest.
Honest, yeah.
There's no things. Look, it's not. For the first time, I saw grown men being honest and willing to be different.
But at that time, when you're hearing that, let me see if your experience was similar to mine. That there were so many men in that room that deal with the same junk in your life that you're dealing with.
I was no longer alone.
That you're too ashamed of talking about amongst other men. You had men probably older than you, maybe younger than you, different social statuses than you, and you realize that I'm not alone in this.
Absolutely. You for the first time, you heard my upbringing. I mean, I was a new kid a lot. I always felt like I had to be almost like a chameleon. I had to adjust myself to fit in.
Yeah.
I was never able to just be, I was, but I wasn't at the same time. I was never able to just be Brady. So for the first time, I realized, hey, I could just be me, because this is how God created me. It doesn't matter what this dude next to me thinks about me, or this guy at work thinks about me, because I was fearfully and wonderfully made.
Yep.
And I'm not alone anymore, because there's other dudes that are going to walk through whatever I'm going through. And at this time, we were finding out the sex of my now son 2 weeks later. And I was scared to death.
Yeah.
Because I don't know how to be a dad.
Yeah.
So and that was one of the things I was struggling with. But just being around men willing to be honest, truly and you'll hear it if you go on a retreat, or if you've been on a retreat, you hear it is men, they'll just get naked. They don't care. They take off. They do not care. They open up because if one person is able to come to Christ from what they say, they're okay with it. And it was just a real honest men and that's why I'm not saying I think that we also take the men's and women's retreats and put them on a pedestal. And you still have to remember the main thing's the main thing. The retreat ministry is a way to get men and women away for a weekend, to create a space for them to experience Christ in a way that they might not have ever before.
100% agree with that.
And I can see, even in myself, like I've had to do some self-checks of remember to keep the main thing the main thing.
Yeah, and I also think that it's important to mention that I've never teamed one. I'm going to at some point.
Right.
The group that I went with, my church put it on. It was one they put on, but I mean, I think you'd get the same experience no matter whose church puts it on.
Absolutely.
And that's what the beautiful thing about it is that some of this, or I think the original structure started with, the Acts retreat with the Catholics.
Right.
Which, when you start talking denominations, I mean, then you get like messiness. But to be able to see one thing that was created, not because of a denomination, it was created so that we can strip away our junk and be vulnerable and recognize that we're in this thing together.
Absolutely.
And that if we come together as believers, we can strengthen our relationship with God. We can strengthen our marriages. We can strengthen our role as the spiritual leader in our family, be better fathers, be better people at work or within the community, that there is more to this than us being self-centered on all of our stuff. Woe is me.
Right.
How can I go out and help other people? So that's one of the things that I absolutely love about it. The other thing is that I think is important is that I've seen men that come back and, man, they are on fire at that point. And I just want to say you got to stay in it. Mm-hmm. Stay in it. You don't want to lose this fire, just stay in it. So I've seen a lot of these retreats create D groups that come right out. So I think that's really important that coming out of these retreats that you maintain those bonds, and then you do what we're called to do, go out and multiply, be able to share your story and make it happen. So you experience the retreat. Obviously, there was a deepening and a transformation within you. Advance a little bit more with now we're going into the business.
Okay. So 2021, I go on my retreat. And November of 2021, I took a job with a company in Crossett, Arkansas. I worked there until November of 2022. Then I went to Grindstone. We were working all that out. So we're fast forward. So now we're in March of 2023, 3 years after I listened to the podcast. Right up to 3 years.
Okay.
And I'm sitting there. I'm getting ready for this men's retreat, and I'm just tore up. Like, I'm just not, something's not right. I didn't know what it was. And, but I told my wife before I left, I said, God's going to be revealing something to me this weekend. I don't know what it is, but it's going to be, and see, I was also kind of frustrated because this would have been my, 5th retreat that I had teamed, and they didn't have me helping with anything. I'm like, put me in the game. Like, I was kind of mad, but it was God doing his thing again. God put me in a place to where I could listen. That weekend, I had 11 people, men that are very influential in my life. One of them being my former boss, come up to me and say, "Hey, love the business idea, but something is not right. And I'm like, we're in like day one of the weekend. I'm sitting there. What do you mean? It's like, what's not right? Can you tell me? Because they were. I've been praying for you for the last couple of weeks. Just something's not right. Something's not right. And then one night, one of my good buddies, Colby Cromwell, he was actually a guest on the retreat. We've been trying to get. The dude loves Jesus. He has been a huge influence on my life over the last 4 years, but we could never get his stubborn tail on a retreat. Well, he finally went, and there was a reason why. One of the reasons was so he could talk to me. So he had just had a kid. We hadn't talked in a few months, and he grabbed me and was like, "Hey, tell me about this business, dude. This is awesome. Excited for you, whatever." And leading up to this, the 10 people before him never brought up the name, not one time, because I pushed it away. And I tell him, he goes, "Well, what's the name of it?" And I told him the other name, and he said, "You don't like that." I said, "What do you mean?" I said, "The name's fine." He goes, No. You don't like the name. What's wrong with the name?" And I said, "Well, I had another name, partner, that it's not that he didn't like it. It just didn't feel right to him, and this, that, and the other." And I told him the whole story about praying for a name, a conversation starter. And he had no idea leading up to this. And so when he brought up that name, he goes, "Brady, you're not listening. You got to listen. He gave you what you asked for, and you still turned it away." And he goes, "I think he's telling you need to take Rooted, and you need to go out on your own, and just know that he's going to provide." And so I called my wife, and I said, "Hey, I need to talk to you. I need you to start praying. I told you that God was going to be revealing something to me this weekend, and I think we are supposed to take Rooted and go out on our own." And I'll never forget, I got home, and we were praying and praying and praying, and we're sitting there talking, and it was scary. It's we only had a couple $1,000s in the bank in savings,
Yeah.
And she goes, "How long are we gonna have to live off ramen noodles?" And I was like, "Oh wow, hold on, I think she's really wanting to do this." And I said, "I think we need to talk to our parents." I said, we're gonna go talk to your parents because they're here, and then we're gonna call my parents. So we go to talk to her parents, and I know she was sitting there thinking, well, they're going to talk us out of it. And I'm sitting there. I promised her dad that I was going to take care of his daughter financially and any other way. So I was like, I think God's calling me to quit my job and start this new business. And they said, "Well, if God's calling you, you got to go." I don't even think Catherine and I talked on the way home, just because we were in shock. So I called my dad, and I was like, if anybody's going to talk me out of it, it's going to be my dad. He plays devil advocate better than anybody. And we got to talk. I think he let me talk for 30 minutes. And he goes, "What I'm about to say is not what you think I'm going to say." And I about hung up the phone because I knew it was. And he said, if God's calling you to something, you got to go. So that was on a Sunday. I turned in my 2 weeks on Thursday of that week. And April 4th of 2023, Rooted was started, and we hit the ground running. And we have been blessed beyond measure. We haven't missed a meal, and we haven't missed a bill in a year. So and we've been able to talk to so many people. We've been able to do so many different things, kingdom work, as well as doing what I love every day. So
let's, that's a very powerful story. And, I can reflect back to things in my life to where, we do a lot of asking sometimes, but I'm just going to speak for me. I do a lot of asking sometimes, but part where I fail is the listening part. And you know, hindsight's 20/20. But if you spend enough time reflecting on the good decisions and the bad decisions that you make, if you're honest with yourself, you can definitely see the things that were laid out before you that you either ignored intentionally,
Absolutely,
or you totally missed. So why don't you walk us through, give us an overview of what rooted land management is and what it's not.
So rooted land management is a scope of work based and or contracted land manager service company. So it's land management, land development, and then a consulting side to where we build management plans for hunting properties, whether that's duck, deer, turkey, all of the above. We do soil samples. We do food plots. We build food plots. We don't just go plant them for you, but we actually will build them. We will start them from ground zero. We do land clearing to open up all of that. We build roads, you know, anything as small as putting a feeder up and putting corn in it to as big as building as big of a food plot or big as a sanctuary as you want. Just about anything. We do chemical spraying, chemical treatment. We do a little bit of forestry work where it's more of like tree girdling or what they call hack and squirt. I know a lot of people don't like that, hack and spray, whatever, but it's chemical treatment just to do basal reductions. Our goal is to take what's good and conserve it, and then take what's bad and take it out. Because at the end of the day, if you don't have, people want to kill big deer, they want to see a bunch of deer and all this other stuff. Well, you're not going to kill big deer, and you're not going to see a lot of deer if you don't have the habitat to make them want to be there.
Correct.
And that's our goal. Everybody wants to talk about being on the X when you're duck hunting. I mean, you can apply that to anything. Our goal is to make your property the X.
Yeah, the most attractive it can be.
Most attractive it can be, with nutrition, with habitat, with bedding areas, with travel corridors, let's better your chances with your travel corridors in and out.
Right.
Let's work on the how you're going to get to the stand, how you're going to get away from the stand. How are we going to make deer come to your place without just, let's just be honest, without throwing 2,000 pounds of corn on the ground and saying, here you go.
Yeah.
Like, let's put something in their bodies where they're healthy.
So one of the things that, there was a lot in our original conversation that I picked up on, just like mind blown on some of this, but you're also, I don't know if that's certified as a prescribed burner.
I'm a prescribed burner, so we do prescribed burning for people too. And this is all service work. I think at first a lot of people thought that I was just doing this for myself.
Yeah.
We work primarily in Louisiana, Arkansas, and Mississippi. And that's where.
Well, another takeaway that I really loved about it, everything when you're starting to talk about land management, any of us who are in the recreational side that enjoy going hunting on whatever we're trying to hunt, we all know that, pound for meat that you bring back is pretty expensive. So hunting and improving things, that can really get expensive. But one of the things I learned from you is that you have a plan that's affordable no matter the size of your property.
Right.
From the person that's got 20 acres to the person that's got 1,000 acres, there is truly an affordable plan that you can work with no matter the size of their property.
Right.
That may work out to where you're just analyzing what they have and just giving them a printout. Hey, these are some of the steps you need to take, to you coming out and doing something more in depth, to all the way that you can do everything for somebody.
Right.
You're able to service all aspects of it. So this truly is a business that really anybody can afford to be able to use if they want to increase the habitat on their property.
Right. And we also, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and lie. There are things that I might not know the answer to, but I have contacts with wildlife biologists. I have contacts with, again, people that are smarter than me, that if I get stumped on something, I'm not going to just BS with you.
Sure.
Just to be honest with
you.
So,
practical application of that, if you get on someone's property and they really need some true timber management, you're not going to be that guy that's going to say, hey, you need to do this. You're going to be that guy that says, hey, this is the person we need to bring in that's going to tell us exactly what we need to do for this timber.
Absolutely.
Because what do we know? Over the past, 40, 50 years, everybody just thought you plant pine trees and that's what we got.
Yeah, and that's just not – that's not always the best thing. And that's where – and when I get to – I hope to one day be the guy that when you call and say, hey, I want some timber management, I hope that I'm that guy where I don't have to call someone else. But until that day, I will refer you to somebody else.
Sure.
I won't even – I'm not even going to say, hey, for $100 I'll tell you something. No, here's who you need to call. Because I am in it for the money, for the point of I still have bills to pay.
Yeah.
But like I'm truly in it because I love land and I love going and working the land and then seeing the results of what I do and seeing that the happiness that it brings people and seeing the memories that it creates.
I want to talk about value for a minute, and that's another eye-opening thing. I have the privilege of being able to hunt a family member's piece of land and truly feel like it is a privilege. I did some soil samples on that land, and it was talking about the tonnage of lime that I needed. And I'm thinking that I got a hand spreader. I've got a when you think tonnage, you're thinking about that trailer that's rolling out in these cow pastures, dumping out lime. There's no way I can make that happen. But you walk through a path where it comes to whether it be prepping the soil to fertilizing, how the value you bring to the table is you can offer unconventional things that will truly save the landowner money. May cost a little bit more up front, but if you stretch it out over a 5-year period, you're saving serious money. I mean, the value that you're bringing, you're producing a better crop for them and at a better value. Walk me through some of that. So there's two products you really mentioned too.
So I use a company called Deer Grow. Deer Grow is I've been using them for the last 4 years. Off the top of my head, I don't remember how long they've been around, but they have actually truly been around for a long time. They're also known as AgriGrow. AgriGrow, they made this liquid fertilizer for farmers. Well, there was a guy, Jeremy, who came in and said, hey, I don't need these tanker trucks for my food plots. We need to figure out how to concentrate this AgriGrow product to where it's in a 2.5-gallon jug so the everyday person can use it. Well, it started out with a thing called Plot Boost. And what that was is a liquid fertilizer. It was what you did after you planted. And what it did is what it does is it brings out that extra nutrients in that crop that you're planting in your food plots to where that when the deer or wildlife are eating it, they're getting every little bit of nutrition out of that food plot. Well, it went on to where now they have a thing called Plot Start. And that's more of it's like a liquid lime. Now, it's not exactly lime, but
kind of hacking the system.
Yes, you're kind of hacking the system a little bit to where it works with it works the soil to where you can kind of neutralize everything a little bit to where when you can't bring in a big lime truck, you don't have another option. Well, you could buy this Plot Start, and I think it's like $100, $120 maybe for an acre. And most people, even myself on our family farm, The biggest food plot I have is 1.5 acres. So most people don't even have 1.5 acre food plots. Usually they have little, especially in around like Union Parish or the piney woods of Mississippi and Louisiana, they have strips inside their pines.
Mm-hmm.
They don't even have necessarily plots. They just have lanes planted. Well, that could go a long way, and it has been a real beneficial and vital part of my management plans because I use it on everything. I believe that if you use the plot start and the plot boost, that when you go in and you can neutralize that ground and get your ground really working, and it's going to be I always mix it with fertilizer the first time I use it. And I'll get into the fertilizer part here in just a minute too, but when you can mix that with fertilizer and then about 21 to 28 days after germination, you can go around with plot boost. And the cool thing about plot boost is you can mix it with a glyphosate, which is going to kill all your weeds. So now your wildlife is just eating your food plot. They're not eating junk. They're not having to find it. It's all there. But the other deal that I like about this plot start and plot boost is fertilizer. Fertilizer is expensive. And what most people don't realize is fertilizer, 50% of all fertilizer you put in the ground becomes soil bound. So when you go and fertilize a field every year, you're doubling what so let's say that you have 6 bags to an acre of triple 13. Well, 3 bags is actually working that year. 3 bags are going into the ground. So fast forward a year, you're going to buy 6 bags again because you saw all that fertilizer work the year before. No, 50% of it's in that ground. Well, it's getting to a point to where you're always overdoing your fertilizer. So what I do is I take half of the recommended amount, mix it with my plot start, and I use a granule fertilizer on top of my plot start for the first year. And guess what? 50% is becoming soil bound still. I've put my plot boost in the ground, which is going to amp it up a little bit more. But what that also is doing is it is encouraging and loosening up that soil to where that fertilizer doesn't become soil bound anymore. So now it's pulling more fertilization from the ground to give you more nutrients in your products. The next year, you're still going to have some soil bound fertilizer. I don't use fertilizer. I just use my plot start, my plot boost, and I move on. And that plot boost, I believe you can use plot start twice a year. So if you do a spring, summer food plot, you do a fall, winter food plot, use it both. And you can use that plot boost up to, I believe it's 4 times a year. So, I mean, you could, and the cool thing is too, you have trees, you want to help with production of your acorns or your pears or your right, persimmon, whatever. You could spray it on the base. You've heard of people on putting fertilizer around the trees. You could put it on the base of the tree. You could spray it on the leaves, and those trees absorb that plot boost to give you a better production of whatever that tree is.
Right.
So there's just little products like that to where, yeah, it might be a little more expensive up front, but I'm looking right now that we're saving about people 33% over 3 to 5 years on food plots. Well, if you're talking 5 acres of food plots at, I don't know, $3,000 a year, $15,000 over 3 years on a regular time, I mean,
yeah, it's good savings.
It's good savings.
Something I want to make sure we get communicated. It's great you gave us a little bit of that information and kind of how to give the small man a leg up. But through our discussion, I think I asked you the question. I said, well, hey, what should I be feeding during the summertime? And your answer to me was, I mean, you can really kind of feed whatever, but it's not focused on what you feed. It's focused on the ground, because when you have a plan that's in place that is attracting deer, not with just one food plot, but it's the food plot, it's the browse that's out there, it's the trees that you plant to continue attracting, and it's not just the one variety of tree. It's about a system. It's an ecosystem that you're building to make your place the most attractive as it possibly can be.
Absolutely.
And it's, you can get some good headway with a food plot. That's like your instant access. But when you start focusing on the number of pear trees you might need to plant, or the sawtooth oaks in this one area to produce acorns because it'll produce it faster, or this is an area that we need to do some cutting back just to make the habitat more appealing. It's that whole system that you can bring to somebody that can make this property better than it's ever been for years to come.
Absolutely. Because I also, like you were talking about on the what's coming out of the ground, I believe in supplementary feed. I believe in attractants. I think that, especially, I'm not going to sit. I have a 2-year-old son. When he gets old enough and says, Daddy, I want to go hunting, guess what? There will be a pile of something close enough so that it will attract that deer to that place, right? Like, I'm not necessarily against that. But I am to the point of supplementary feed is expensive. Mm-hmm. When you're paying $30, $40 a bag, not everybody can afford that.
Right.
Where you can go spend, let's say it's $30 a tree. Okay, let's say you could plant 10 trees. You spend $300. You get your trees, put them in the ground. Okay, well, now in 3 to 5 years, depending on where you buy them from, if you actually buy a seedling, don't buy the actual seed and wait forever.
Right.
But you buy a tree that's three years old, and then in 3 to 5 years from that time, it's producing fruit, acorns, chestnut, persimmon, whatever it might be. Well, guess what? That $300 investment pays you for years.
Yeah.
Well, now when you plant them in the right way, like pears, crabapple, persimmon, chestnut, sawtooth, they all drop at different times.
Right.
Well, now you have food year round.
And for that guy that has, or that guy or gal that
Mm-hmm.
has that small piece of land that is surrounded by a lot of big acreage around them, how do you get the deer in on your place, out of your neighbor's place? Is you be the best place? Yeah, be the best place in town.
Mm-hmm.
Be the supermarket for them to come in and be able to eat. So what your company offers, it offers something truly for everyone at everyone's budget.
Right.
Man, I was excited to get you in here to talk about it, because anytime I'm around someone who truly believes in what they do, you can see the excitement that they have about what they do. And I don't want to, put you up on a pedestal to say that you never have a bad day or that you're not going to hit adversity from time to time. I think we talked about a little one when you walked in here. Things are going to happen. Life is messy sometimes. But to have a passion for what you do and know that you're now able to do that, it will show in your work. I have never seen your work, but just listening to you talk about your work, there's no doubt in my mind that people will benefit from the value that you bring to the table. And I really want to emphasis on value, because everything that you talk about, it's not I'm trying to take from you. I'm trying to make your place the best that it possibly can be and bring value to you at the same time. And I truly believe that's what you'll do for your customers.
Absolutely. I love land. Again, you could take it all the way back to when I was 5 years old, hanging out on our family farm with my dad and my grandfather and my uncle. Like, it was just I have those memories. And if I can help start to create those memories for you, like that brings me so much happiness in what I do. It's a little, everybody gets happiness in different ways. There's home builders out there that when you get to build a custom home, when you see your new homeowner walk into that house and they're just like, that's exactly what I wanted. They get this joy in their life because they were able to give somebody what they want.
Yep.
I get that same happiness and joy when I see somebody look at their piece of property and say, hey, I cannot wait to do this with my son or my daughter or my grandson or my granddaughter or niece, nephew, or my dad, whatever it might be. That's just, I love what I do. And I get to see it,
What we're going to make sure our podcast notes has all your contact information in it. But is there an online platform somebody can go on to learn more about your company?
So we're on Facebook, Instagram, we're on TikTok. I don't know how to, it is what it is. I try to get out there as much as I can. Probably the most information that you can get is on Facebook.
Okay.
We're working on a website. It's a lot of moving parts right now.
Sure. But Facebook,
Facebook is at Rooted Land Management.
At Rooted Land Management.
And then we are working on some things right now to where we're going to be coming out with some educational videos.
Okay.
Truly talking about the steps that we take and why we do it and the what, the why to the what, or the what to the why. Sorry about that. But we're working on that. We're working on our store right now online. That's kind of
and I want to make sure that we hit on that. So part of the I'm gonna let you explain it. So tell me about the store. Tell me about your logo.
Okay, so I'm gonna read you. So on my logo, because this is a word. I'd rather read it than mess it up. But Jeremiah 17:7-8 is our kind of the verse of our company is, and it says, "Blessed is the man who trusts in the Lord, whose trust is the Lord. He is like a tree planted by water that sends out its roots by the stream, and does not fear when heat comes, for its leaves remain green, and is not anxious in the year of drought, for it does not cease to bear fruit." And my wife and I, when Rooted happened, that verse was in that dream of that logo, and we ran with it. And my wife and I God has blessed us with the work, and every time we got real close, we always got something else. Well, we also remembered that we want to remember to give back to. So what we did is, I had a couple of people ask us, like, "Hey, we want some Rooted stuff." And being a new business, I can't just go buy all these hats and shirts and just give them away.
It gets expensive.
It gets real expensive. But I had one of my friends come up to me. He's like, "Hey, have you ever thought about selling that stuff?" I was like, "Not really. I don't want to be a clothing company. Maybe we'll talk about it." I brought it up to my wife, and she said, "Well, we'll just pray about it and see what happens." A couple weeks later, I was in Greenville, Mississippi. I was at a gas station getting diesel, and some random person walked up to me. We had a conversation about the logo. We had a conversation about Jesus, and he goes, "Hey, you sell any of that stuff?" I said, "No, not at the moment, but I have a hat in my truck." So I gave him a hat, and then over the course of the next month, I had a lot of people asking to sell. So I said, "You know what? Maybe we should try this thing." But I don't want to make any money off these. There's no reason to. That's not what I'm in it for. So we sell shirts and hats and pullovers and sweatshirts, and you could buy fishing shirts, and we give 100% of the profits off of it to help support the North Louisiana Men's and Women's Retreat Ministries. That money goes to helping pay for people to go.
Yep.
That money goes to help churches starting their retreat ministries be able to find a venue. It helps buy food, helps buy Bibles, whatever it might need. Now it has been slow. We have, but it's just, that's what I'm not in it to sit here and push, and every dollar is awesome. But that's what it goes to. We don't take anything off of it. And our goal is that you wear our merchandise and that it becomes a conversation starter for you.
Yeah.
So we're working on getting that a little bit better. The link to the store right now is on our Facebook, Instagram.
And we'll make sure that hits our show notes as well.
Okay.
So it'll be easy for people to find. Brady, I want to thank you for taking the time to come in. I know running a small business is a time consuming. it's not necessarily cheap. So a lot of cases, time is money. And I know it's not raining today. So when it's not raining, you got to get in what you can. So
Absolutely.
Thank you for taking the time just to share your story, to be a man in our community that is not afraid to wear his faith on his shirt, his hat, and to be willing to put your yes on the table to say, I'm here to have that conversation today if you're ready to have it.
Absolutely.
To be able to do what you love and to bring value to our community, to be a light for the young or old that has always had a dream of doing something, but are not ready to take that step because why can little old me be able to take that step? It's encouraging to be able to hear the stories like yours. And if it just, like you said earlier, if this just helps one person, I think we did a good job with it. So again, thank you for your time. I'm glad that we got connected. I'm glad you've let me pick your brain a little bit. And we're going to do our part to try to get your message out to help your company and your mission be able to grow.
Absolutely. I really appreciate that. And I appreciate you asking me on here. Like I said, I love what I do. I love talking to people. But at the end of the day, if this logo and this company gives me the opportunity to bring one more person to Christ and the company fails tomorrow, it was all worth it. So I greatly appreciate you giving me the opportunity to come and talk and let the world know about our mission and our company. So.
Man, thank you so much, and we look forward to seeing what you're coming on your 1 year anniversary. Can't wait to see how many more anniversaries you have past this.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you for taking the time to watch or listen to this podcast. We really appreciate your involvement. Please leave us a comment, or even better yet, subscribe to this podcast and hit that notification bell so that you can be alerted for every new episode when it hits.